What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're back and ready to get back at it as we enter Week 14. But before we get into Week 14, how are you doing today, Korea?
I'm doing okay. It's not my favorite time of year, but that's another story for another time. But it is a very interesting time of year for sports, though. Obviously, for college football, it's bowl season, and we found out that Wazoo is going to LA. We're going to the LA Bowl. UW as well is going to the Alamo Bowl. We find out the Final Four after a crazy championship weekend. We're getting kind of near that time of year where divisions are wrapping up in the NFL, starting tonight, where looks like these two teams are. But I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I can't complain. I'm happy that football is just very interesting. Obviously, baseball news. We had a pretty big week as well. So a lot of things happening just around the sports world this week.
Yeah, I think, probably next week we'll get into MLB free agency and we'll get into some of the bowl games. But today we'll focus on this weekend and today's NFL games. So we'll start right with the game. It starts right in about an hour or so from right now. Raiders, Rams. The Raiders have won like 2 or 3 in a row now, I believe. So they've been on a bit of a roll. Rams have lost 6 in a row. So they have all 3 of Baker Mayfield, John Wolford, and Bryce Perkins active today. So we'll have to wait and see how all that plays out. But either way, the Raiders are trying to fight into the last wild card, and the Rams are just fighting for next season at this point. What's your thoughts on this game tonight?
I mean, it's going to be bad. I mean, the Raiders, obviously, you mentioned they're getting in their winning ways after a really slow and sluggish start to their season as well. And it's credited to pretty much the emergence of the offense. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is playing on a year where the Raiders didn't take his option, and he's saying, you know what, you should have taken my option because look what I'm doing right now. And he's having a career year, so I feel like he's definitely going to be tested tonight against the Rams defense. Obviously, that knows how to stop or contain the run. We saw last week against Seattle where pretty much the run game did not exist for Seattle. It was pretty much Geno Smith kind of leading that.
They had no healthy running backs either, though. So I was
about to say that may be due to the fact that Seahawks had practice squad members as their leading backs, but that's another story for another time. But when you look at this Raiders team, right, and the offense is there, one of their biggest struggles has been defense, but this defense will have a field day if their pass rush is what it's been throughout the past few weeks. Max Crosby getting outside, Chandler Jones has definitely been a key factor. I feel like if this pass rush is going to keep doing what it's been doing for the past few weeks, that it's going to be a rough night for Baker Mayfield. It's crazy to say that, the Rams are that desperate that they're the only team. That's right. They were the only team to put a claim on for Baker Mayfield. And there were rumors the Niners were going to do that because obviously they have quarterback issues now even more. But, this Rams team, look, it's just bad. I mean, they have zero offense. I think I saw Matthew Stafford's out for the season. It's time to pack it up, look toward next year. Obviously you don't have picks. So, there's going to be some questions in the offseason and of, who's going where and, potentially is it time to kind of give up on the dream because, Aaron Donald only really came back this year to kind of run it back. And, there was rumors about him retiring in the offseason and, Bobby Wagner, obviously a former Seahawk, he's getting of age. Jalen Ramsey, even though he's still one of the best corners, he's not getting any younger, with how that team is looking right now, there may be a trade candidate out there for him. So it's going to be pretty ugly offensively for the Rams. I don't really like anyone. I feel like this Rams offense we saw last week, it struggled to get anything going, but at the same time, it's always been, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers, Dale Henderson, with like sprinkling OBJ in there last year, or Allen Robinson before he got hurt. And, it's just, there's really no positive outlook for this Rams offense. It's going to be bad because it's a Thursday night game, but, someone has to win this game. The Raiders definitely have the most momentum. I'm going to go with the Raiders as well. And then for this Rams team, they're obviously, sitting last in the NFC West after, pretty much completing the first to worst Super Bowl curse is definitely in effect this year for this Rams team with everyone injured and, a bunch of names leaving. And, it's definitely looking toward next year for this LA team.
Yeah, I definitely lean towards the Raiders straight up here. I do think it's going to be close, a short week. Josh Jacobs, I think he should be active, but he is still a little bit banged up. We saw Cam Akers. He handled over 70% of the snaps last week, so he kind of took back over that workhorse role. And, I think we're going to see the Rams try to lean on him, just given their quarterback situation. So I like the Rams to cover here. They're either like a 6.5 or 7-point underdog, depending on where you look at. So I like the Rams on the spread, but the Raiders straight up in this game, what should be probably going to be a pretty ugly, short week, two not great teams, tonight. So now we'll go over to a divisional battle. Jets coming off a close loss against the Vikings. Bills coming off a big win over the Patriots. The Jets beat the Bills early in the season, so the Bills are looking for, revenge in that regard. Bills are, I think they're the number 1 seed right now in the AFC. So they're looking to keep that lead in the AFC. What do you think of this game, Korea?
See, the thing with this game is that I would say this game is definitely in the Bills' favor, but the way the Bills have been playing right now, they definitely don't look like the number 1 team in the AFC. You could definitely argue that the Bengals are the best team in the AFC. You can even argue that the Chiefs, even though the Bills have beaten the Chiefs, are the best team in the AFC. It's very top heavy right now, and the Bills obviously losing Von Miller for the rest of the season. That's a killer. That's not gonna save your season. So you lose your pass rush there, and it's definitely hard to really bounce back against a team that earlier in the season you lost to on the road, and that game obviously. It was fun to watch, obviously. It was definitely fun because, it was coming down to the last second. Josh Allen was on his last possession. Could he make the comeback? He didn't make the comeback. Sorry, 1 second. And, it was a fun ending. Obviously, we got to see the emergence of Sauce Gardner. That's when the Jets still had Breece Hall. So these are 2 different teams now. They lose their kind of starters and their key guys. The Jets – they don't have Breece Hall anymore, so their run game is, not the greatest. But then again, Mike White, the savior of the masses, has come and saved this offense from what has been pretty lackluster, to say, pretty much all year. That's been pretty much the number 1 concern is the quarterback play. And now that it's coming in full form, it looks like this Jets team, I want to say the Bills are going to win this. I want to say that, this is in Buffalo, so it's going to be cold. It's going to be one of those games where, it's not going to be friendly for the weather, and, that definitely could impact, the quarterback play and all of that. I want to take the Jets. Honestly, I would say this because the only thing I'm comfortable with is saying that this is going to be going under because it's a divisional game, but maybe the Bills sneak out a revenge win in the last few seconds. But, now losing a bunch of your pass rush is going to be hard to really, get pressure on Mike White, even though, yes, he does not scramble like Zach Wilson. He's made some good throws in that pocket collapsing. We saw that almost comeback, against the Vikings last week for the Jets. So, I feel like they could definitely ruffle some feathers in Buffalo. So I want to take the Bills, but it's going to be very close.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Buffalo here. That this is going to be the environment, and Mike White, has been teams. Obviously losing Von Miller is big for the Bills teams. They have been at least formidable, without him. So yeah, I lean towards the Bills here, but it is a divisional matchup, so it should be a close game. And the Jets have the defense to at least somewhat contain the Bills' offense. So I lean towards the Bills here, but it should definitely be another close game like it was the last time these 2 teams played. Now we'll head over to the Browns and the Bengals. Bengals coming off a huge win over Kansas City. Burrow, I think, is 3-0 now against Patrick Mahomes. Deshaun Watson, his debut last week, but it was all about their defenses and special teams that scored all the touchdowns last week against Houston. Obviously now Deshaun Watson facing a much tougher opponent, obviously in the Bengals than the Texans, but now he's a full game under his belt of after missing, I think it was 700 plus days. What do you like here, Korea?
Look, I don't know how this Browns offense looks. I don't know if it was a fluke because of the nerves, because of the pressure, all of the outside noise, the storylines. It could have been all of those things, but Deshaun Watson had one of the worst games of his career last weekend. You could attribute it to anything. It could be, the fact that his victims were in the crowd, his old team that he played for, all that noise could be a factor, but they still pull out a win, even though their defense carried them most of the way. And then now they got to play one of the better teams in the AFC, and the Bengals, in a divisional matchup. And I don't know if I buy this Browns offense still. I mean, yes, even though Nick Chubb didn't have a great game on the ground, I feel like he'll have a pretty decent, in fact, better game this week go around against the Bengals defense. But I feel like the Bengals right now are definitely the better team offensively. They're one of the better teams defensively as well, in my opinion. And, these two Ohio rivals, they definitely know each other well. So I think it's going to be, low scoring as well. But I feel like Joe Burrow just knows how to get it done in the end. This Browns team loves to give up the deep ball. And, we saw Jamar Chase come back last week, and he had himself a great game. And, T. Higgins is now questionable, but, he still is an impact player for this Bengals offense. And, potentially getting Joe Mixon back, even though Samaje Perine has been a great X factor for that offense as well in the past few weeks. The Bengals offense is going to be really hard to stop, and I feel like the Bengals are just going to roll right through this Browns team that does not really have an offense to get going. Obviously, you mentioned this that was the first game for Deshaun Watson in over 700 days, and maybe it's rust or the fact that all the storylines and whatnot, and every stadium he goes to, he's probably going to get booed and all that stuff. But I definitely feel like it showed like how bad it, how long it's been since Deshaun Watson has been on a practice field or in a game like scenario. And so with that, and just momentum wise, I got to go with the Bengals here. And I would love to see a big game from Jamar Chase. I feel like this Bengals secondary has given up a lot of big plays, and their secondary has had some weak spots, and Jamar Chase knows how to expose any secondary with his speed. And I feel like that's going to be one of the key reasons why this Bengals team gets the win on Sunday.
Yeah, I can't bet against Joe Burrow here. I mean, I was nervous about Watson last week when he first came back, and I still am nervous and cautious with him this week as well. I think it might take several weeks for him to get back to what his old form was. And you mentioned Jamar Chase, and the Bengals were winning without him, and we saw how big of an impact he had last week, whether he was getting the ball or not. Just drawing attention away until the Bengals had the momentum. They're at home, so I think the Bengals win this one fairly easily. Now we'll get to a game that's probably not too much to talk about between the Texans and Cowboys. Texans are clearly tanking. I think they're going back to Davis Mills this week, but it won't make a difference. The Cowboys scored 33 points in the fourth quarter last week against the Colts. They should have another huge blowout win here. Korea, what do you think?
Look, there's not much to talk about this game. I mean, we saw what the Cowboys did to the Colts on Sunday Night Football, and the Colts were playing competitive football for 3 quarters, and then the Cowboys said, all right, well, we'll put on the starters, and then they just ran away with it. And they're playing the worst team in football, and the way the Cowboys defense is, it's pretty much the number one defense against the last ranked offense in terms of passing efficiency. So if anything, I would go on Prize Picks and bet whatever Trayvon Diggs in total right now. I'd definitely go more than expected. If Micah Parsons is healthy after the whole thing about him and his situation, nothing like injury wise, just the whole Biden thing on Twitter. But that's just noise. But Parsons, he's definitely gonna get his sacks. Honestly, this game's gonna be ugly. I feel like the Cowboys are just gonna beat them left, right, and center in the Battle of Texas, which is crazy that this is the Battle of Texas because you have one team that's good and one team that's really, really bad. So I'm gonna go with the Cowboys here. I don't even know what the spread is, but the Cowboys are going to beat them so bad it's not even going to be close. If the Texans somehow win this game, though, I will laugh so hard. But the Cowboys should definitely easily win this game. not even close.
Yeah, I mean they were down 30-0 at half to Miami, and then they kept it close with Cleveland last week until their special teams and defense gave up the 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, Cowboys should win with ease again. Now we'll go to an NFC North matchup. And it's pretty interesting how the Lions opened up as the favorite. And now they're, I think, a 2.5-point favorite, I believe, over the Vikings, the first-place Vikings. So that's definitely interesting. The Lions coming off a 40-point, not 40-point win, but scoring 40 points off Jacksonville. Vikings, a close one over the Jets. Lions have won, 4 in a row or 5 or 6, something like that. So they've been on the roll offensively, but their defense, still is, they did well against the Jaguars last week, but also the Vikings proved to be a much bigger threat than the Jaguars did last week. Who do you like here in this NFC North battle?
Yeah, the crazy thing is that the Lions, you mentioned, the Lions are the favorite right here. And I feel like the only reason the Lions are definitely in the favor or just the favor is because the last matchup we saw and how the Vikings offense was pretty much stalled. We saw Jeffrey Okudah lock down Justin Jefferson. And, I feel like that's kind of one of the reasons as to why Vegas is thinking that, the Lions definitely have a favorite. And not to mention the Lions, I think, have won. I think it's 4 because I think they were 1-6 and now they're 5-7. So they've won 4 of their last 5 games. And, they're on a roll right now. Just beating on opponents. And you mentioned last week, just absolutely beating the brakes off of the Jaguars at home. That offense for Jared Goff just seemed like it was just flowing so great against the Jags defense. I feel like this game is definitely going to be one of the more under the radar games because we have the Lions right now, obviously, who are it's crazy. The Lions are fighting for a playoff spot. They're kind of like, the Seahawks in that way where they'd have the Rams top first round pick next year. So they don't have to worry about picks or, anything like that because they have a top 5 protected pick right now with the Rams. And then they're still 5-7. And, the way Jared Goff's been playing recently, he's been playing great. Amon-Ra St. Brown had himself a great game last week. And, even DeAndre Swift got a lot of carries. And, that was something that was a big question is where the hell is DeAndre Swift? Even though Jamal Williams was the goal line threat, DeAndre Swift got his carries too. So, it feels like this Lions offense is just unstoppable right now. And, I feel like this Vikings defense is a lot of bend, don't break. And we saw that a lot in the Jets game. The Jets would drive down and, get some good looks and they had to settle for 3 because they can't get in the end zone. And the Lions can, and that's going to be something that's going to be really hard for this Vikings team to do on the road. Can they stop the big plays or can they stop the drives before they get into field goal range? Because the Lions will definitely take advantage of that and end up in the end zone for 6. And I feel like this game could be an upset, and I feel like it is going to be for a reason. This is my upset of the week, or I have the Lions actually over the Vikings. I feel like this Lions team is one of the scariest teams to play right now offensively just because of how well they're gelling. And then defensively, I feel like they're getting better and better each week. We see Aiden Hutchinson being that top 2 draft pick for a reason and making those plays, whether it's interceptions at the line or getting to the quarterback. I feel like this is going to be one of those shootout games that we talk about. The Lions are always great in shootout games, and that's why I feel like the Lions are definitely going to be I feel like the Vikings, are definitely going to be on upset alert this week against the Lions, and that's why I personally have the Lions over the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, it's an upset based on record, but obviously not based off spreads, as the Lions are the favorite in the game. But I'm still going Minnesota here. I think it's going to be probably the highest scoring game of the week. So definitely, I like to start a lot of players in fantasy football this week on both teams. But I'm leaning towards Minnesota here. But I think the Lions definitely do keep it close and make it. It should be probably the most exciting game looking at the slate this week, probably. So now we'll go over to an AFC South. Both the Jaguars and Titans coming off getting pretty much crushed, both of them last week by the Lions and the Eagles. Trevor Lawrence has missed practice today and yesterday, Wednesday and Thursday. He said on Wednesday that he is going to play, but he got I think it was his leg got twisted up in that game last week, and he did return and finish the game. But he'll probably have to practice on Friday to have a chance of playing on Sunday. But either way, I think Derrick Henry is going to do what he does against the Jaguars and run all over them. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like we definitely saw the Titans get exposed last week. I think just for the trade because obviously AJ Brown got traded from the Titans to the Eagles, and it definitely showed him like, why would you do that trade? And it's your star receiver, and I forgot who the GM is for Tennessee, but he got fired right after the game, so it shows you how stupid he really was. But I expect a great game from Derrick Henry on the ground here. We'll see what the health of Treylon Burks is like, obviously, after he took that brutal hit at the beginning of the game for that touchdown to combat the Eagles score, I think. But it was a brutal hit. He's still questionable. I feel like he may play, but I feel like this is definitely a Derrick Henry running through, this Jaguars team. The Jaguars got exposed last week on defense, allowing the Lions, the best scoring team in the country, 40 points. And, Derrick Henry, I feel like the Titans team will have a bounce back offensively, and I definitely like the Titans to beat the Jaguars at home, and I definitely like Derrick Henry on the ground to have a big game.
Yeah, I agree. We got a question here from Kevin: Zay Jones, Neil Collins, or Mac Hollins? I think all three are, kind of in that wide receiver 3 territory. You have Zay Jones, who's had some big games and some games where he's disappeared. Obviously, Matt Collins without Renfro has been, decent the past few weeks. And then Nico Collins is really just I think he missed practice yesterday and today, so I don't even know if he's going to be playing or not. I'm leaning slightly towards Hollins here hesitantly, but I'm not super confident in any of them. What do you think here, Korea?
Yeah, I was about to say I'm pretty sure Jones is also limited in practice, so there's still a question for him. I lean toward Hollins as well, just because with Nico Collins, I believe he's also injured, and obviously with the way Matt Collins has pretty much been used in that Raiders offense up the past couple of weeks, as you mentioned, without Hunter Renfro, and I believe he's out tonight. That's definitely big for Matt Collins to step up and be that wide receiver too. And I like Matt Collins the way and just how the Raiders offense has been flowing as a unit recently, and I feel like him being involved is definitely a big X factor. So I would definitely go with for me, I'd go with Matt Collins.
And then from Harrison, between Foster Moreau and David Njoku, between these two, I go Njoku, but I put out a post on Tuesday on Chigozie Okonkwo. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not entirely sure. The Titans tight end trending upwards, probably no Treylon Burks. I put out a post on Tuesday, so I'd recommend checking that out if you missed it. But Okonkwo would be my recommendation over these two. But I lean towards Njoku of these two. Korea, what do you think?
If I had to choose one of the two, I'd definitely go Njoku as well. I feel like this Rams team does not really allow any big plays to tight ends, and Moreau is definitely had his big games, but at the same time, he's not really as involved in the offense as like a Matt Collins, Josh Jacobs, or Devontae Adams as much. And Njoku definitely has a better matchup, and he'll be more involved in the offense. But I believe his name is Chizo. Yeah, I know. Is Chizo Gaim? I think that's how you pronounce his name. But I like him as well. As you mentioned, potentially no Treylon Burks on Sunday, so that could be huge for Chigozie Okonkwo. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah. And then the Seahawks backfield, I mean, after Kenneth Walker, it's a complete toss-up. All season, both DJ Dallas and Homer have been involved. I have no interest in Tony Jones. He's only on the field because literally every running back in Seattle was hurt last week at that point. They signed Wayne Gallman as well. DJ Dallas and Walker both missed practice yesterday and today, so I assume that they're both out on Sunday. At which point, Homer becomes a bit more appealing. Homer should be playing, I believe, on Sunday. He practiced yesterday. I'm not sure about today or not. But if Walker and Dallas are both out, I think Homer's a decent RB2 desperate play. He's definitely not a safe play. But, I mean, there's a lot of bias this week and injuries. So if you're desperate, then Homer is a decent play if both Walker and Dallas are out.
Yeah, I feel like in the Seahawks backfield as well, after Walker, it's really just Homer because, Jones is definitely a practice squad guy. And DJ Dallas, even though there's still questions on him, he's definitely more of the pass back or, the third down back. And after Kenneth Walker, it's probably just Homer. And, Homer was definitely limited today. So, there's still questions on him. But it looks like he'll be able to play on Sunday. So if it's not Walker, I definitely lean toward Homer as well.
Do you mean Jawan Jennings from the 49ers or Isaiah McKenzie? McKenzie on the Chiefs? You mean the Bills? If you're talking about Isaiah McKenzie, I go Travis Homer if both Walker and Dallas are out, which is what it's looking like it's going to be. If DJ Dallas does play, if him and their Walker do play, I'd lean towards Isaiah McKenzie, but it's a toss-up between these two at the end of the day. But I'd lean towards Homer if both Walker and Dallas are out. All right, so now we'll get back into the matchup this week. I think we left off on Eagles and Giants, I believe. Giants coming off an overtime tie with the Commanders, and then the Eagles coming off a big win over the Titans. And so it's Giants are right on the edge of the playoffs and on that like kind of the last wild card. Eagles are still number one seed, obviously, in the NFC. What do you think of this NFC East battle of Korea?
Yeah, this is definitely a weird one considering the Giants. They had that weird tie last week, and it's the second tie of the season against the Commanders where they had many opportunities to either end the game or, try to at least, kick a field goal in overtime, and they just couldn't do it because their offense really slowed down. And, there's not going to be any slowing down of any offense when you're playing the Eagles, who have one of the best total offenses in football. We saw last week, obviously, with Jalen Hurts just throwing the ball to A.J. Brown all the damn time, and it works. But, I mean, and the way Miles Sanders has emerged this year as the lead back in Philly, and Philly is definitely still one of the best teams in football, if not the best team in football, at 11-1, and I feel like they just keep getting better and better each week. I'm taking the Eagles in this game. Obviously, this will be a test. I feel like this definitely will be a little bit better of a test defensively than the Commanders in their last game against the division opponent. And so now they're playing. I believe this is the first game against the Giants, if I'm not mistaken. And so these two teams haven't met all season, and their first meetings in December. And definitely different teams at this stage of the point. Philly is just on clicking on all cylinders right now, and even though they don't even have Dallas Goedert, they're still clicking. And then the Giants, there's still questions on whether or not Daniel Jones can lead this offense. Even though it's very run centric and run oriented with Saquon Barkley. They'll definitely have some trouble getting past this Philly defense that, applies pressure up front. I'd like the Eagles as well. But, I think it's going to be a little closer just because, it's a division game and, these two teams have not met each other yet this season.
Yeah, definitely the Giants kind of, because you look at these two teams and you think it's going to be a blowout. But, obviously divisional matchups can tend to be closer than, what the other guys might be. But yeah, I definitely like the Eagles here, straight up, and probably to cover the spread as well. Another divisional matchup, Ravens and Steelers. No Lamar Jackson, so we have Tyler Huntley on their center against Kenny Pickett. Ravens are coming off a win. They squeaked out over Denver like pretty much the last second last week, 10-9. The only touchdown of the game with like 20 seconds left. And then the Steelers coming off a 3-point win over the Falcons. I think should be a pretty. I think the Steelers are the Steelers are a 2-point favorite in this game. Who do you like here in the battle between Pickett and Huntley?
Oh God, I mean this battle. This one's an interesting one. And the sole reason is just because it's two teams where you thought they'd be in a little bit of a better situation in terms of quarterback. There's been so much trouble with the Steelers, throughout the whole season, in terms of their quarterback play. But they've been winning games recently, and they're on a little bit of a winning streak. Now they have T.J. Watt back, and even though the offense is not playing great, the defense is doing just enough. But now they have a true test when they welcome their division rivals, the Baltimore Ravens, who, even though they don't have Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley, he's been in this situation before, and we've seen what he has to do, what he has done, or what he has to do against these big time opponents. We saw it last year against the Packers, I believe, or one of those years, and he's definitely won the big games when it mattered, and I feel like this is definitely going to be a big week for him. Division opponent on the road. It's going to be cold up in Pittsburgh. And then I believe J.K. Dobbins is eligible to come back this week off of IR, so that could definitely be a huge relief off of Huntley's shoulders, not being one of the only ball carriers for this team and not having their offense be stalled, even though the Ravens obviously coming off of that really, really ugly win against the Broncos last week, where you thought the Ravens were going to actually lose that game. Then they should have lost that game. I definitely like the Ravens as well, but I feel like this game is going to be a lot closer as well. I feel like the Steelers will definitely give them a run for their money just because it's a divisional opponent. And, these two teams have personal animosities with each other. And, I definitely feel like the Steelers team can definitely pull out the win at home. I'm excited to see the George Pickens versus Marcus Peters matchup. Definitely a lot of fuel, let's just say, as we like to call it, in that matchup. Those two personalities on both sides of the ball. But I have the Ravens squeaking out the win on the road. I remember last year, I believe it was the game where they went for 2 and they missed it, and they barely lost to the Steelers last year. But I feel like this year will definitely be the revenge game, and I feel like the Ravens will get it done on the road and beat the Steelers.
Well, like you said, Tyler Huntley has proven, to be capable as a starter. I mean, he's similar play style, as Lamar Jackson, as a guy who can run, and, more like the short to intermediate passes are kind of his, bread and butter, so to speak. So I agree with you. I'll definitely lean towards the Ravens here, but it should be a tight, probably low-scoring game between these two teams. So now we'll get into the other, what might be ugly game of the week. We have the Texans Cowboys, and then now the Chiefs Broncos. Broncos currently have the number 3 pick in the first round for the Seahawks, and the Chiefs looking to get back up to the number 1 seed in the AFC, coming off a close loss to the Bengals. Is there any reason why I think the Broncos would keep this game, close?
No. Even though the Broncos definitely have a good defense and the best scoring defense, this is not going to be pretty. This is going to be, Mahomes doing what Mahomes does. He has been one of the best quarterbacks all season, and I feel like he continues to be one of the best quarterbacks for a certain reason. And even though it's at Denver, and all that stuff, Denver has one of the worst offenses in football. In fact, the worst offense in football. And I don't see anything good going for the Broncos. So Broncos country, let's cry. I'm going to go with the Chiefs very comfortably.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now we got Tom Brady versus Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy wasn't even born when Tom Brady started playing in the NFL. As you said earlier this week, 49ers coming off losing Jimmy Garoppolo, but they're still able to pull off the win over Miami, a big win. And then the Bucs came back last second. Tom Brady against the Saints on Monday night. We got the 49ers pass rush against Tom Brady and the banged-up Bucs offensive line. The first full start for Purdy after he came in the middle of the game last week. Curry, what do you like here?
This game is going to be weird for me because I don't know what this Brock Purdy offense is going to look like. I mean, Mystery Roven himself is coming into the situation, as we talked about earlier, as I mentioned earlier, another quarterback situation. Jimmy G is out for a long time. There's been rumors that he'll be out for a playoff run. Then there's not out for the season, but definitely out for the foreseeable future. And now they have to rely on Brock Purdy, and he got enough done last week against the Miami offense that completely struggled to beat down the Niners, who have one of the best, if not the best, defense in football. You look at Brady, right, and I feel like this is going to be one of those games once again where the Niners defense is just going to change this game because the Niners will obviously have the momentum. Obviously, the Buccaneers, Tom Brady can do Tom Brady things, and he had that miracle comeback on Monday night against the Saints. But you're playing one of the best defenses in football on the road, and even though you're going back to the Bay Area, and that you know the Bay Area, Tom, this is not going to be fun. The offensive line struggles for those Buccaneers have been so bad, and now you're playing against Nick Bosa, who is one of the best defensive ends in football, and he can definitely get to the quarterback quickly, and he'll expose any offensive lineman, tackle, guard, whatever. And then the way that Fred Warner and Greenlaw, they just absolutely shut down the middle part of the field, and that's definitely a lot where Tom Brady loves to throw those passes, those dump down passes to whether it's Fournette or if there's potentially like Godwin on a slant or Evans or whoever it is. It's definitely going to be hard for the Buccaneers to win this game offensively when their offense is really bad and the Niners defense is that good. So I don't like saying this, but I'm going to have to take the 49ers just because their defense is so much better against a really struggling offensive line in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm taking the 49ers just because I think that their defense, like you said, can win this game just alone, their defense alone. I do believe, we'll see how Purdy looks in his first full game. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion last week coming in. They were told in the locker room, like I think it was at halftime, that Garoppolo would likely be out for the season. And so at that point, they were playing for a lot, in that moment. So we'll see, playing a full game now, how Purdy looks. I do believe the Buccaneers could pull it out if they can force a couple of turnovers and, keep this game low scoring because, the Bucs probably aren't going to score a lot. So if our defense can step up and force a couple of big turnovers and, give them the favorable field position, then I definitely think that they can, have a chance of sneaking out a win here. But, ultimately, I think the 49ers defense will be too much at the end of the day. And, I think they're going to win this game themselves alone, their defense, over the Buccaneers. So now we'll go to the final afternoon game on Sunday. Panthers coming off their bye. Seahawks coming off a win. Panthers traveling to Seattle. Who do you like here, Korea?
I like the Seahawks, obviously. I feel like this Panthers defense can definitely be exposed. We've seen the Panthers, obviously, in full rebuild mode, and they've had so many quarterbacks this year playing. Who knows who's going to be playing quarterback for them? Actually, we do know it's PJ Walker, but you know what I'm saying.
Darnold.
Oh, it is. I thought it was PJ Walker starting.
It's Darnold.
Oh, yeah. You see, my point proven. So it's PJ Walker one day and then Sam Darnold the next day. Who cares? The Seahawks definitely have one of the best offenses right now, and the way Geno Smith is playing, he's been playing great. We talked about, even though, yes, they are very, very, very low in terms of running back depth right now, it doesn't really matter when DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are playing great. They still have Noah Fant who can get involved, Kobe Parkinson, they use all their tight ends. And, if we have one or two running backs that are healthy, potentially DJ Giles, as you mentioned, Travis Homer, who definitely can, get out in open space instead of, even though Kenneth Walker potentially being out this week. I still like the Seahawks' chances against a Panthers offense that really struggles. Although I will say that, if Dante Foreman is playing on Sunday, it's going to be really, really difficult for the Seahawks defense to stop. That's been one of the key things. The Seahawks defense has been really, really struggling the past few weeks, is really stopping the run game. We talked about it since that Tampa Bay game where Rachaad White kind of emerged. And since then, it was just, attacking with the running game. And that's what the Raiders did with Josh Jacobs. And that's what the Rams did with, I forgot who their running back was. It was, other than Akers, it was, I think, Powell. Who the hell is that guy? Some practice squad, nobody. And then the Panthers obviously lean on the run. So, it'll definitely be interesting to see what the Panthers do offensively to really combat with the Seahawks, who love to, take time, drive down the field, and is playing great football. But I like the Seahawks, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Seahawks to win, but Foreman's the reason why I think it will be close throughout the game. Like you said, we talked about how bad the Seahawks run defense is in the Bucs game in Germany a few weeks ago, and it's been even worse since then. Giving up, it was like 230 yards to Josh Jacobs. They did a decent job last week against the Rams, but still, not great. And Foreman has been better than Akers or any Rams running back has been this year. So Foreman should be able to get I mean, you'd think the Seahawks could be able to focus on Foreman and make Darnold beat them, but that's what I've been saying for a while and it hasn't worked out. So, I mean, Foreman should be able to get his touches and, get his work. And I think he will be the reason why the game is close. But ultimately, I think that Geno Smith and the Seahawks offense will prevail, in Seattle. It's also, a big travel for Carolina. If it was in Carolina, I'd be even more worried, to an extent. But I like the Seahawks at home here. Now we'll go over to the Sunday night game, Dolphins-Chargers. Dolphins looking to bounce back from the loss last week in San Francisco. And then the Chargers lost to the Raiders last week. Chargers still kind of fighting for the end, the last wildcard spot. They're kind of slowly slipping down. Dolphins still, they're behind Buffalo, but not too far behind Buffalo. Do you like the Miami offense to bounce back in this game and prevail?
Yeah, I do. I think the Miami offense will definitely have a bounce back game. Obviously, their defense, the Chargers defense, is nowhere near as the top as compared to the compared to the Niners. We saw that in their matchup between the Niners and Chargers earlier this year, and there's been a lot of talk about Justin Herbert being the quote unquote social media quarterback. As Emmanuel Alcha likes to say, and there's all that numbers and hoopla and all that stuff, and when it comes down to it, this is the battle of was it the right decision or not? Because obviously the Dolphins, back in that 2000 and I believe what was the 2020 draft or whatever draft it was between Tua and Herbert, going back to back, that definitely caused a lot of controversy. And a lot of people are like, well, did they make the right decision? And what was the right decision? Now we're going to see it unfold between these two teams. I like the Dolphins just because, I feel like they have a bounce-back game offensively. The offense, was competitive to an extent. They tried, but Tua turned the ball over. I haven't said that. I haven't said that name in a while. Tua turned the ball over, as I like to call him once in a while. He definitely showed up when it mattered, and I think 2 or 3 interceptions is not going to get it done. And I expect a bounce back for this Dolphins team against a Chargers secondary that can definitely give up the big plays. And Tyreek Hill has that speed, and he'll beat him on outside. And same for Waddle. I like the Dolphins to beat the Chargers on the road here.
Yeah, I mean, Tua wasn't even like that bad. He had the 2 interceptions. I think one, Jeff Wilson slipped and fell before as he was throwing it to him. But, I mean, he definitely wasn't his dominant self that he has been, all season. So it's definitely a good bounce back spot. It definitely didn't help that Jalen Waddle was also in and out of that game last week as well. And he should be back healthy as far as I'm aware this week as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers offense will be able to do their own as well against the Dolphins team that isn't great. But I do lean towards the Dolphins as the better offense and the better team overall to bounce back and prevail here. And then now we have the Monday night game, which is kind of a weird game between the Patriots and Cardinals. Cardinals coming off their bye week last week. Patriots Didn't have any offense last Thursday against the Bills. What do you like here, Korea?
I don't know. I mean, I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't like either of these teams. Obviously, you mentioned the Patriots and how last Thursday they had no offense. They looked horrible against the Bills. They couldn't get anything going. Mac Jones struggled, and now they got to play the Cardinals, and this is a weird game. This is definitely Monday night all over again. But I feel like the Cardinals have definitely got to win one game with their offense. And I feel like this is the game to do it, even though the Patriots defense has been carrying them all season. I want to say the Patriots, but I just feel like the Cardinals will get a goofy win on Monday night at home, just off of some maybe like a forced fumble or a blocked kick or something goofy like that. I like the Cardinals at home like that, but I definitely will hope to see a resurgence from Kyler Murray in that offense, because if not, then they got to make a change. Whether that's Kingsbury in the front office, or who's calling plays or whatever. I feel like something got to change, and they're coming off their bye, and I feel like this Cardinals team definitely needs a big game that they can win at home. Even though Kyler Murray struggles at home, I want to say the Cardinals just on that sole reason. It's just a weird Monday night game.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I'm leaning towards the Patriots because of the coaches. I trust Bill Belichick way more than Cliff Kingsbury at the end of the day, and that's what kind of has me leaning towards the Patriots. But it should be I think it should be a pretty close game. It should come down to the end between these two teams. Let's get to this one question before we sign off from KD. Akers, Kyren Williams, or Isaiah Pacheco? For me, it's between Akers and Pacheco. I mean, Akers was the workhorse last week, so I think that does continue tonight. And I do think that Akers is a decent play tonight. Rams should look to run the ball a lot, but I ultimately trust the Chiefs' offense, significantly more than the Rams' offense, and so that's why I lean towards Pacheco. But it is very close with Akers. What do you think?
I agree with you. I feel like Pacheco is definitely a good play as well, or Akers tonight with a run-heavy offense with Baker, new into the quarterback and new into the Rams system and all that stuff. I feel like definitely rely on Akers to really carry this momentum for this Rams offense. Even though Pacheco is playing against one of the best running rush defenses in the country, I definitely would take one of those two. But I personally like Akers just for tonight, just because he's definitely going to be kind of leading that offense with a new quarterback and some rookies and some practice squad guys coming up to play on a Thursday night.
Yeah, it's definitely a better matchup for Akers, but we'll see how the Rams offense moves the ball. I mean, we don't even know who's going to be the starting quarterback because all three of them are active. So we don't even know if it's going to be Baker. It could be Wolford. It could be a quarterback by committee. We'll have to see, wait and see on that. But I think that will do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. We'll be back next week. We'll talk about the MLB free agency and the winter meetings and all of that. And then we'll preview some of the college bowl games as well next week. So we'll get into all of that next week. Thank you all for tuning in. We're about 20 minutes away from the Thursday night game, so enjoy that game. It's a pretty ugly game, but hopefully it's at least a close game. And enjoy the games on Sunday, and we'll see you all next week.